do with somebody like Craig? I think he probably touched on a really important point. How does he get us? He makes this phone call, he drops the dime, he says, listen, I need you to talk to Rotary and Thibodaux. The first thing I'm thinking of is, how can I get out of this? And I'm making up excuses in my mind. I've got to be somewhere, I've got something else to do. And Craig continues to go down. The rest of your cousins have come. Everybody's included this. You owe me, and in the end, you know that it's sort of that wrestling move if you ever watch worldwide wrestling where they put the elbow in the back of your neck and they're squeezing it down here. The bottom line is, he says, if you don't come, I'm going to call your mother. That was it. I knew I was in. So all I had to do was set up airplane tickets and make it here. And just so you guys know, now is not the time to be flying into this place. It was the Final Four last night. Flying into New Orleans was not impossible. So I flew to Lafayette. It's been an adventure for a 24-hour trip. So believe it or not, over the years, I got to know Craig pretty well. My other cousins are Mark, and these are guys, and this is going to sound frightening, I look up to. Especially when Craig was on the radio. And I don't know if anybody remembers this. Years and years and years ago, Craig had a radio show. And I thought that was the neatest thing in the world. And over the years, we've actually had, the cousins have sort of handed off like a baton DJ spot at the local radio show. And I can still remember when I was a kid, listening to Craig, and he sort of had this signature spiel. And I heard it for the first time in here. And I used it over and over and over again. When I got the baton to be the disc jockey, let me tell you, the shift I had as a disc jockey, I was 17, so of course I got the best shift. I worked from 6 p.m. to midnight on Saturday night and 6 a.m. to noon on Sunday night. So that was a great baton. So Craig's signature shift, and I use this all the time, is popping the top off the giant six-pack of sound, KXRO FM 106.3. And I got to tell you, that's all I ever learned from Craig. So when Craig talked to me about this, I called him up and I said, so Craig, what should I talk about? I put a lot of thought into this, and do you want to hear about how I ended up in medicine, how I got to California? Do you want to hear about the present state of medicine, at least in pediatric medicine? Or do you want to hear about what the future is for medicine? And Craig's answer was, yes. So I'm just going to sit here and tell you that we're going to start from the beginning here and work our way through, and until you're bored, we'll continue to tell stories. But one of the things that, after talking to Craig for a lengthy period of time, I said, how long should I speak? What should I speak about? He says, I really don't care. Just make it relatively short and try and do it. So that was his advice. But I've got to share with you, and he had mentioned my wife before, who's not here, she's recuperating from knee surgery. She probably gave me the best advice. Because I said, I'm going to go home to my hometown and give a speech to the Rotary Club. And she said, my advice is don't make an idiot out of yourself. In front of your parents. So I'll attempt not to make an idiot out of myself. Okay? So when I was thinking about putting this talk together and thinking about decision making, took me back, and we're not going to go all the way back to Plato and Aristotle, I promise, but briefly, when I was thinking about how I ended up in medicine and how I ended up making decisions in my life, it all drilled down to one thing. And when you think about how people have made decisions throughout life, Plato had plenty to say about decision making, Aristotle had plenty to say. Confucianism was very, very apparent in the East, in the Far East, in helping people decide how they were going to live, what they were going to do. And I thought about all the decisions I've made throughout my life. There's really been only one thing that's been important to me, and that's Buck. So as we walk through here and we talk about how you make these decisions, I ended up relying on Buckisms. And there are plenty of Buckisms here, and anybody that has known Buck throughout the years knows that he's got plenty of pithy sayings that are really important to know. And I always thought he was pretty wise, and I discovered that there's a history of this sort of thing. Actually, Mark Twain came up with a great saying, I'll read it to you. When I was a boy of 14, my father was so ignorant, I could hardly stand to have the old man around. When I got to be 21, I was astonished at how much he had learned in 7 years. And he's getting ready to make a comment over here, I can see it now. So, as we work through these things, and as I show you the important things that Buck has helped me to decide, Craig had recently mentioned that I'm the surgeon-in-chief of the hospital. Well, that's what we call in the business a demotion. If you imagine managing 200 surgeons, it's not much fun. Okay? And as of yesterday, the chief executive officer of the hospital shared with me, not only are you going to have to manage the surgeons, but you're going to be the chief medical officer, which means you have to manage not only the pediatric transplant cardiac surgeons, but the pediatric endocrinologists, all of these people. What that means is everybody in the joint is my boss. And the first thing I thought was, can't I do something else? And in their wisdom, the hospital has sent me off to get a master's degree, and it's in medical management. If you deal with doctors at all, you understand that's one of those antonyms, like Army intelligence, managing doctors. Doesn't happen. So what I thought was is maybe I could use this Buckism business as a business. And these are some scientists working on something that's been used for decision making in the past. You've seen those little magic 8 balls, you shake them around and there's an answer there. I thought maybe we could come up with a Buckism app. Basically what that means is you come to a point in your life where you're trying to make a decision. You take out your iPhone, you shake it around, and Buck is telling you what to do. Some really important stuff. So there's a whole science on this. There's a guy who's written a book, a neuroscientist, where he's described making decisions is a neuroscientific thing. It's chemical. And so what this could do is it could change the way we operate. I spoke to David Boudreaux before coming out. David and I were classmates at EY, and I was thinking, could you use this in education? And we all know that when you're counseling children to try and determine what they're going to do as they get older, what sort of career they're going to go into, how expensive it is. There are all sorts of studies that you have to do. You have to hire people to counsel them. You have to. They spend a lot of time moving to different colleges trying to determine what they're going to do. I thought about that. I thought this was so easy for me. Because as I was growing up, Buck, as most people know, was a CPA now. And so Buck said, boy, you're going to be a doctor. And my brother, he said, boy, you're going to be a dentist. So that was pretty easy to work through. We didn't have to spend any money. We knew exactly what we're going to do, and we were in line. So I thought, how else can we use this? And I thought, again, as I'm making these decision processes, as I'm getting older, I thought, wow, skydiving seems really fascinating. I'd really like to get involved with skydiving. I thought, what a great sport. I mean, you get the view is incredible, the excitement involved with it. It just seemed really fascinating. So I went to Buck about this. And Buck said, I didn't pay all that money to make you a doctor so you can go jumping out of airplanes. And I got to tell you, that was probably pretty good advice. I mean, there are people who jump out of airplanes and their shoes don't work. So when you think about it, again, 99 cents, flip that app on, you'll know what to do. I think one of the most important things we do is pick a soulmate. pick someone you want to spend the rest of your life with. And as I was trying to decide who to marry and who to spend the rest of my life with, I thought naturally of asking Buck. Because I figured Buck he'd probably have something to say about it. And so he taught me something really important. He said, it ain't your fault if your old man ain't got any money, but it sure is your fault if your wife ain't. So I know we've got some physicians in the office, in the audience, and a lot of people end up marrying people they work with. So when you're in residency, a very busy residency, you don't get to spend a lot of time outside the hospital. So I thought, let's take Buck's advice here, and I looked around and did a wallet biopsy, and I figured, wow, the neurosurgeons are doing the best. And there was only one girl. And he hadn't said anything about switching teams, so that was it, decision made. So the one complication with that was, even though this young lady was from East Texas, and I can't get away with all this because she's not here. Even though she was from East Texas, she had gone to college and medical school in California. So I knew, and we were living in London at the time, and I thought, wow, we could go anywhere. And she said, no, sir, we're going to California. So I knew we were moving to California. So I went to Buck, and I said, Papa, we're moving to California. And he told me, the country is leaning toward California, and that's where all the fruits I'm just here to tell you he was absolutely correct. However, Buck came out to visit. Didn't seem like such a bad place. This is a view from Coronado, looking at the city with the mountains in the background. I wasn't so bad. We thought, yeah, maybe this isn't so bad. And then, more importantly than that, and you can't see this unfortunately, but believe it or not, this is the LSU alumni crawfish boil in San Diego. True story, okay? And so Buck did some thinking, and he's never done this before, but there's an amendment on the previous Buckism, and this amendment is, the country is leaning toward Northern California. That's broad. He indeed is correct. So once we moved to California, everybody knows, and Ben Orang is in the audience, what real estate is like. They see you coming there. And so, as we were thinking about trying to buy a house, I was a little overwhelmed by the price of real estate there. And again, the neurosurgeon picked out the house, and we were done. So I called Buck up and I said, Papa, we're buying this house, and I told him what it was going to cost. And he said, boy, you could have gotten a place on the beach on Grand Island. I'm going to sit here and tell you that all of these things are true. And I'm thinking that we could start with this group, 99 cents a piece, and I could get out of this medical business in a heartbeat. Okay, so since that's not going to happen tomorrow,